What's going on, YouTube? There are not many cars in the world that say, "I made it better than a flagship luxury sedan," since they have the size and elegance that simply demand attention. But while there are many entries into the segment, two consistently stand above the rest: the Mercedes S-Class and the BMW 7 Series. That's why we're squaring off these two heavyweights to find out once and for all which brand has created the ultimate luxury sedan. Like always, the first thing on the agenda is pricing and equipment. Of course, as flagship German vehicles, you better believe that they don't come cheap. And indeed, both have extensive option lists in addition to their already over $100,000 starting prices. On the S-Class, that amounts to $23,000 of options, and on the 7 Series, $16,000 of options. Now, this specific 7 Series is the plug-in electric model. However, besides that one aspect, nothing is different, so it will be treated as the 750i for the sake of being equivalent. With both the Mercedes and BMW equipped in similar ways, the final prices are $128,000 and $119,000, which in the world of flagship luxury vehicles is entirely inconsequential. Now, beginning things with the exteriors, beyond the size similarities, the rest of the styling is very different. The S-Class carries the more traditional design, with the large luxury grille and classic hood ornament, and it has a stately elegance. But even as large and attention-grabbing as the S-Class's front end is, the BMW's is even larger, with a 40% larger grille for 2020. Now it takes up all the space between the fully LED headlights, which themselves have done the opposite and have gotten smaller this year. The headlights on the Mercedes have a larger footprint, but they are also fully LED with the same abilities. Like I already said, both are extremely long, but you will notice that visually the S-Class looks thinner in the back due to the vertical taillight design. Generally speaking, the BMW is going to look sportier, and the Mercedes more traditional, but there is nothing objective to separate them. However, coming to the wheels, the S-Class does have larger 20-inch contrast alloys, where the BMW has 19s. For the mirrors, both have every feature that can be thrown at them, including blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. Now, as far as all the other features on the safety front, both of these come with their advanced driver's assistance packages. That means in addition to the usual forward emergency braking with pedestrian detection, lane keeping assist, adaptive cruise control, and auto high beam headlights, both also come equipped with low-speed autonomous highway systems, which takes the stress off the driver. Next, we have the warranties, which are both 4-year 50,000 miles for both the basic and powertrain, but Mercedes does not offer complimentary maintenance, whereas BMW gives you 3 years of it. Finally, ending things at the fuel tank, we have fuel ranges of 412 miles for the 7 Series and 541 miles for the Mercedes. But anyways, that's it for the exterior. So now let's go ahead and get to the part that's really important, the uber luxury cabins. So walking up to the vehicles, it goes without saying that both have smart entry and remote start, which are accessed by these very nice key fobs made from real metal trim. Now, peeking inside the interiors, their roles seemingly reverse, with the 7 Series being the more traditional looking one. Our model is finished in a beautiful Zagora beige quilted Napa leather, and the S-Class in a similar porcelain colored Napa leather. As far as the seats themselves, both have more ways of adjustment than one can count, plus heating, ventilation, and massaging capabilities. The leathers themselves are very soft and supple, in addition to looking great. Now beyond the seats, both interiors are crafted with some of the finest materials available. So starting with the S-Class, you have stitched and piped leather across even the upper dash. And then in the middle areas, you have more quilted leather, wood, and aluminum. Finally, even the lower areas are leather wrapped. In the BMW, you also have great materials head to toe, including a leather dashboard and wood all through the middle. The lower parts are also leather wrapped, but there is a hard piece of wood where your knees would touch. So while the materials are pretty much the same, I will give a half point to the S-Class for having more intricate details that help it have more of an aura of specialness. As you can see, both come with fully customizable digital gauges. However, Mercedes does allow you more adjustments to the design. They allow you to change each section instead of just the center areas. But the less expensive BMW does give you a head-up display, which is further optional on the S-Class. Obviously, when it comes to the steering wheels, they have power adjustment and heating both there and in the armrest. The next major point is storage, and here the S-Class is ahead. Its center console is quite a bit larger in footprint and in depth, plus it has NFC pairing. Freeing up a lot of that center console space is the fact that both use electronic shifters. They operate the same way despite being in different locations. And when in reverse, you will see 360-degree camera systems fire up. Both of them have tons of available angles, but only the BMW has a 3D mode, which allows you to look around the vehicle from an aerial perspective. The next thing to look at are the climate controls. BMW has opted to use virtual buttons, but with unique texturing, which ends up being easier to use since all of the main controls are located here in one place. In the Mercedes, you have to navigate into the command system to find certain functions. And now that brings us to the audio systems, so let's take a sample. Both systems are fantastic, so we honestly couldn't pick a favorite between the two. And now that brings us to the infotainment systems. Both have 12.3-inch displays, but the main difference to be pointed out is that the 7 Series has the latest iDrive 7.0 software, while the S-Class has the older command system instead of the new MBUX. This means that the 7 has several distinct advantages: better performance and graphics, and more methods of control since it can be touched, gestured, used via the knob, or controlled via the new virtual assistant. It does have one really important downside though, and that's that it only has Apple CarPlay and you have to pay a subscription to use it, whereas Mercedes includes both systems free of charge. Finally, ending the interior, both have giant panoramic moonroofs. Now of course, in vehicles like these, the rear areas are nearly as important as the front, especially in other countries where being chauffeured is more common. Since they are both offered in only long wheelbase form in the US, you have absolutely insane amounts of space. The 7 Series has actually got the edge in both legroom and headroom, but only by about 3%, so it won't get any points. Digging into the rear features, both have tons of toys to play with, and extreme luxury. Starting with the seats themselves, they are fully power adjusting with about 45 degrees of recline, as well as heated, ventilated, and massaging. Additionally, the armrests are also heated, and every window has a power sunshade. Now, related to temperatures, both have 4 rear vents, but strangely enough, the S-Class actually does not have any rear climate controls as equipped, since it would require an additional package. As far as tech is concerned, neither have the rear entertainment screens, but only the 7 Series has a tablet controller for adjusting climate, ambient lighting, audio, and seating. Now heading around to the back, both trunks are power. And once they open up, you'll find about 2 cubic feet more space in the BMW. However, the S-Class has a really handy pop-out storage box, which keeps messy things from messing up the carpet. So at this point, this is still a very close race. But now let's go ahead and see what's under the hood and how they drive. So in a similar way to the styling, the BMW is the sportier of these two. That starts with the engines, where the BMW's 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 outperforms the S-Class's 4-liter twin-turbo V8. The power numbers are 523 horsepower versus 463, and then 553 pound-feet of torque versus 516. That does directly translate into the BMW being the quicker of the two.
Wow.
And then when it's time to get moving, you can definitely get moving quickly. You know, of course, as you keep saying, comfort and luxury is this car's emphasis, but you do have a V8 with lots of power and lots of torque on hand. And even though this is a huge vehicle, you can get moving with some serious haste, you know. I mean, that's also part of having a luxury experience, is that I've got plenty of power on tap at all times. However, despite being slower, the engine keeps to itself better in the S, which is appreciated in this type of car. Power is put to the ground via each brand's all-wheel drive system, and routed through an 8-speed automatic on the BMW, and a 9-speed automatic in the S-Class. More importantly for cars like these is the ride. Both of them do have air suspensions, but the sportier BMW does trade a little bit of comfort in the name of more athleticism. The Mercedes never feels wallowy, but potholes are something you merely see without feeling or hearing. Really, it's smooth. We've been in several of these flagship vehicles, and I know the S-Class has a reputation for being the smoothest of the smooth, and definitely initially here I can say it's living up to that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can practically...
It is silent.
It doesn't even seem like it's running. It's just dead silent. We're just going down the road. I also want to note that the S-Class has a system that tightens and loosens the bolsters when going around a corner to keep you in place better. As far as the steering is concerned, they both have light setups. The BMW's is more precise, but more importantly, the S-Class offers more isolation from road imperfections. And then finally, the last thing to mention is the fuel economy, which is essentially the same for both models at 21 and 20 mpg combined. So there you have it. These two amazing flagship vehicles finish things up neck and neck. Basically, Mercedes and BMW threw everything they had at these two vehicles. So truly, no matter which way you go, you will be rolling in one of the finest luxury vehicles in the world. Anyways, thanks for joining us for another Car Confections comparison. And be sure to subscribe for more comparisons and our signature full review videos. Take care.